Macaulay has been sacked. The club confirmed on the official website yesterday that the Scotsman, who we paid £1 million compensation for to get him out of Chelsea in order to become Graham Potter's head of recruitment, has left the club. Now, this is completely expected, very unsurprising, a very expensive transaction for West Ham as well. It's not like us to pay that much money. We don't pay compensation for a manager. So to pay £1 million for a head of recruitment and then less than 9 months later sack him, that's expensive. Now, this might surprise you. I think this is good news. To some extent, you're going to have to work with it. I think there's some bad news attached to it as well. I would prefer to have someone overseeing transfers, etc., etc. But the reason I think it's good news is because I think this January transfer window is going to be huge, not just for West Ham. I think it's going to be huge for quite a lot of teams in the Premier League. It's only 7 games in, so it's very hard to predict. But you can certainly get a feel for the league already. We've seen every team play 7 times. I think it's starting to work itself out. Is anyone looking at the league table at the bottom 5-6 teams and going, oh my God, that team's there? You're not, are you? You're going, yeah. The one surprise might be that Sunderland's not a little bit closer to the bottom than where they currently are. Is anyone looking at the top going, oh wow, you're not, are you? The teams you'd expect to be up there are. There's 1 or 2 teams currently underperforming, like Newcastle, for example. But it's only 7 games in. But the league's looking like you'd expect. So I expect that come January, there might be 6 or 7 teams in a bit of a relegation battle willing to spend money. Sometimes when you go into that January transfer window, there's at least 1 team, maybe even 2 teams already cut adrift. So they're not spending. They're getting ready for the Championship. They are financially preparing for relegation. I'm not sure we'll have that this year. I think you might have the team that's 20th thinking we can stay up, let's spend money. And I think a lot of teams will, but you can also apply that to the top of the table as well. You might have a 3-horse title race and they might look at it and go, do you know what, let's get 1 player in and try and make the difference. So anyway, January I think is going to be busy. Therefore, we need to be as streamlined as possible. It is crucial that those involved in the recruitment process at West Ham are in sync now. So that come January, we are prepared. Because quite often we go into that January transfer window and you feel like we're a little bit unprepared. We cannot have that. We cannot afford to make mistakes. And also because I expect so many teams to be doing business, we won't be the only team wanting a striker. At this point, I would suggest it's feasible that Leeds United will be looking for a striker and Burnley might be looking for a striker. There might be other teams as well. I've not really thought about it that much. But we won't be the only team in the market, in a relegation battle, looking to get someone in. There'll be a lot of competition for the same players. We've got to be prepared and we've got to be ready to move quick and we've got to be prepared to spend money. So I think to some extent, the less people involved at West Ham, the better. Now, other clubs, the more people involved, the better, but not with West Ham. And I think it's much of a West Ham thing, it's much of a David Sullivan thing, but it's also a bit of a Nuno thing as well. And this is why I think Kyle Macaulay departing the club now is actually a good thing. Because if he was to remain here, and I would have been okay with it from, let's call it a scouting perspective, because there's been a lot of talk in the last week about who actually identified Diouf and Fernandes, and no one's discussing Magassa. We've covered it. But my feeling is he was involved. And as a result of that, I was okay to keep him around because I thought, well, clearly he's half decent at identifying talent. Plus, because he was at Chelsea, he would have been heavily involved in the scouting process at Chelsea. And he was quite high up at Chelsea as well. He wasn't a scout. He was, I can't remember his exact title, but he was head of transfer strategy or something like that. He was overseeing departments at Chelsea. So when he came to West Ham, he would have had a lot of players in his mind, in his back pocket that we could look at. Chelsea, for all we know, Chelsea were looking at Diouf. They were looking at Magassa. We don't know. It's very, very possible. When you hire someone like that, they don't just start the job today. They come with knowledge, a lot of knowledge too. So anyway, I was okay retaining Kyle Macaulay, the talented identifier. Let's call him that. I was okay with that. Kyle Macaulay, head of recruitment and therefore involved in the process, I think that would have caused us problems. Because over the years, it tends to. I don't think Nuno would have been keen on Macaulay sticking around, and it's been reported that the reason we've got rid of Macaulay is because that Nuno doesn't want to work with him. And I think there's an element of truth in that. Again, I don't know, you don't know, we just have to guess. But when we guess, we're using opinions from other situations. So I'm using it based on Nuno at Nottingham Forest. He was happy. Edu came in, and Nuno's complaints was, my communication with the owners disappeared a little bit. Edu's here, sorry. So I don't think Nuno liked having that person in between him and the owner at Nottingham Forest. Therefore, if Macaulay was in between, I'm not sure he would have been keen on that. So I think if the more direct conversations and communication Nuno has with David Sullivan in regards to the January transfer window, possibly the better. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but it might just suit the guy that we've got currently in the dugout. Plus, I don't think Sullivan would have liked having Kyle Macaulay here. And this is where we see it time and time again. It's nothing new. Macaulay leaving. We had Newman, we had Henry, we had Husalos, we had Steiden. It's almost like the manager goes, the guy in charge of transfers, you're out as well. So Macaulay sort of had to go in that regards, not because he was bad at his job, just because he was Graham Potter's man. Now, that's a big picture, long-term issue at West Ham, that we hire a manager, they get to pick the head of recruitment. So when the manager goes, the head of recruitment has to go as well. It's a very silly way of doing things because it's always going to be short-term. You're always going to be restarting. There's no longevity, there's no continuous plan, which is what you want. Ideal world, we'd have someone there in a director of football role, overseeing player recruitment. Head coach leaves, they identify the next one, a very similar one in terms of playing style. He comes in, works with the squad already assembled because they suit him. He leaves. You get the point. We keep on buying the same players for this particular brand of football and we hire the head coach. You all know the ideal football model. That's never going to happen at West Ham. So the next best thing is, how do we make it as best as possible for the current head coach / manager? And once he goes, we get the new one in, and how do we make it best for that person in particular? That's what we're always going to do. We're just going to have short-term cycles over and over, rinse and repeat. So how do we do it for Nuno? And I think Macaulay getting out the way is possibly the best way for Nuno himself, and also for David Sullivan too. I think it's the best way for him in terms of working with Nuno. And this is where I think we're maybe gonna have a slight advantage on one or two other teams going into January transfer window. Not all of them. And that is, Nuno's got a lot of games here. He's already had 2, and he's got 12. Between now and the January transfer window opening, West Ham have another 12 games. So Nuno will have had 14 matches to evaluate the current squad. Now, we ain't going to be doing an overhaul, and I don't want to see an overhaul in January. I think that's a bad time to be trying to do anything of the like. If you're, I don't know, 10th in the table and you've written off European football and relegation, maybe you can start dabbling in it. And I think we tried that a little bit with Benrahma, Kerr and Fanals going, but we just didn't replace the attacking side of it. That was a silly thing to do, but we tried it ourselves because we were in that safe position, if you like. Albeit, I think we could maybe have got European football, but that's a different conversation. So I don't think we'll see too many players leaving. The only 2 I could possibly see going in January currently are Todibo and Ward-Prowse for obvious reasons. But what he has to do, and what he already is doing, and I would expect him to be doing this already, is to evaluate his squad to work out what he needs to add to it in January transfer window. January, the priority isn't raising funds. It's bringing in players that can make a difference immediately. And he's going to have 14 games in total. That's a lot of matches. That is a lot of matches. And I think it gives them a bit of an advantage so that come, I don't know, the 1st of December, a month and a half from now, when they start really firming up the plans for the January transfer window, Nuno should know exactly what he wants by that point. He should be able to say to David Sullivan, I need a centre-back and I need a striker. And also, if you can get me Adama Traore, bonus. If you can get me those 3, that would be wonderful. I have a feeling he might want Adama Traore move Bowen up front, but for me to sort of firm up on that idea. I think it's going to need... I need to see him playing Bowen up front first. Then I'll say, okay, that's where you see Bowen. Because Lopetegui did it, Potter did it, Moyes did it. The last three managers have all put Bowen up front at some point or another. There's a reason for it. He produces goals. It wouldn't surprise me if Nuno looks at the striker market and thinks, there's not really anyone I fancy. But I do like Traoré. So if I get him into the team on the right, I can put Bowen up front. It solves my striker situation without buying a striker. Not what I want to see. It's just a suspicion I have that that's maybe what we're going to be looking at. But come the 1st of December, he should know exactly what he requires in the January transfer window. And in an ideal world, that's where you go to your director of football and say, hey, boss, what do you think? The director of football should already know because he's in charge of that aspect of it. But you go to him and say, I need a striker and a centre-back. He goes, don't worry, Nuno. We've already got 5 strikers and 7 centre-backs that we've been monitoring for the last few months. Have a look at them. Which one would you prefer? And we'll try and make it happen. That's not going to occur at West Ham. I would imagine we're going to go quite old school. I'd imagine Nuno's going to go to Sullivan with specific names and say, I want that player and I want that. Not, I want a striker, I want a centre-back. I think it might be, I want this guy and I want that guy. Go get me them. And I think Sullivan will go really old school. So Nuno's almost like Football Manager 2015. David Sullivan's Champo 102 here, where he'll go, actually, as chairman and director of football and majority shareholder West Ham United, I know exactly who to bring in. Me mate Will Salthouse has got someone for you, Nuno. He's wonderful. And he's not coming till the end of January, so I'm going to save a month's wages as well. How about that for you? I wouldn't be surprised if we almost bring in 2 players. One's a Nuno signing, one's a Sullivan signing. Again, I'm not keen on it. It makes me nervous. But I'll tell you what's worse. Is if we had someone at the club involved in the transfer process that was unwelcomed by Nuno and unwelcomed by David Sullivan. Because the last 3 managers, maybe even 4 or 5, they've all been very polite about the board when it comes to transfers. They say the same line. The board show me great support. Nuno has shown at Nottingham Forest he will speak up and he will speak out if he has to. If he's not happy and he's not getting his way, he's not afraid to start burning some bridges publicly. And Sullivan can't afford that. So he's going to have to keep this man sweet. And I think the start of it was by offloading Macaulay. Like I said, if we hired a different manager or head coach, I think Macaulay would have still went anyway. So when I see the report that Nuno doesn't want to work with him, I think it feels a bit of like almost like it's because of Nuno we're sacking him. He would have got sacked anyway. But I actually do think there's a lot of merit in that claim that Nuno doesn't want to work. I think both things can be true. And I think in this instance, both things are true. And therefore, hopefully, both parties, Sullivan and Nuno, are happy with this outcome. 12 games now to prepare for the January transfer window. And I say there's no excuses. There would have been no excuses anyway if Macaulay had remained. But had he remained, I think he would have been the excuse. If January went wrong, I'd imagine it would have leaked. Oh, it's Kyle Macaulay's fault. That bugger that Graham Potter brought in, he's crap at his job. That's why the January transfer window was rubbish. Well, he's not here. The scapegoat has already been sacked, which is good. Because it puts the accountability and the responsibility firmly at the door of David Sullivan. And if he's going to listen to Nuno, be my guest. And to some extent, I think it's the wisest thing to do. Because of A, he gets the players he wants, and B, we've seen what he does when he doesn't get the players he wants, and we need to avoid that situation. Because the worst case scenario for West Ham is we get to the end of the January transfer window, Nuno's running his mouth about how he wasn't backed and about how unhappy he is, and it positions himself into that place that he did at Wolves and Nottingham Forest and basically says, go on then, sack me. That's the situation we must avoid at all costs. So you've got to keep him sweet in January. I think Macaulay going, I think, increases the chances of that occurring. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I feel a little bit bad for Macaulay. He's done nothing wrong. I've got a lot of sympathy for him, and all these reports came out sort of discrediting him with the signings of some of the players in the summer. I don't believe them, still don't believe them. But I'm able to separate my sympathy for Macaulay to what I think is the best thing for West Ham going forward. Or should I say, actually, let me reword that. The best thing for West Ham is to have the director of football wait and doing that. The best thing for Nuno and Sullivan, let me word it like that. Separating sympathy from Macaulay, it's there. The best thing for Nuno and Sullivan, I think we've now got it, which is Macaulay. You're off skis. Thank you very much for your services. Away you go. Chelsea, you're laughing. And do you know something? I feel quite confident Macaulay will pick up a decent job. It's a little bit of the Xavi Valero thing here. I feel like he's quite held in high regard in football. Chelsea kept Macaulay. They promoted Macaulay. So they obviously rated him. And if it's good enough for Chelsea, to some extent, I think it's probably good enough for us, and I think it'll be good enough for plenty of other clubs as well. I don't think he'll be out of work for too long. I'd imagine he might just wait for Potter to get a job and then go in with Potter, but there's a possibility he'll just go get one off his own back. And do you know something? Best of luck to him. Got nothing against him. Anyway, I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned into yesterday's video, and I just want to clarify one thing, because a couple of people have said it. And one this morning, it really annoyed me, this one. Basically, it was... I appreciate a moaning here, but said, why don't you support Nuno, blah, 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 about the video I did yesterday. Even though in the video I literally said, I am happy we've got Nuno, and I've always said, I think we'll stay up now we've got Nuno. I thought we were going down under Potter, I think we'll stay up under Nuno. However, the next 4 games are massive. I reserve the right to change my mind during the next international break, right? But I just want to clarify, the video yesterday, when I said, I was wrong to have hope. It was purely in relation to wanting good results and good football. And one thing I'll always push back on is the argument, would you rather have defensive football and win games or attacking football and lose games? Well, I'd rather have attacking football and win games. Why can we not have that option? Because at West Ham, I've also seen defensive football and us lose games, right? So it's not defensive and win or attacking and lose. It's not one or the other. There's also 2 more in the middle, which is defensive and lose and attacking and win. That's the one I want. I've given up hope of seeing that under this board. And I guess to some extent this video is part of the reason as to why. I am happy, just for clarity, hopefully those that didn't understand this. I am happy we have appointed Nuno. I feel more confident we'll stay up with Nuno than I did Graham Potter. Let's leave it there. Someone said, what, you're already doing a video mentioning different names that we should have got instead of Nuno. Literally didn't mention anyone. Just making it up, really. Anyway, there you go. I feel good. I feel positive. Mainly because of this. Man, we mugged off Greece last night. Big time. We won 3-1. The geeks have said 86% chance we will at least get into the playoffs for the World Cup. It's Scotland, though. If there's anyone that can turn that 14% round and make it 100%, it's us. But I'm going to say massive thank you to Mavropanos, who had a brilliant game. He didn't have to do much defensively, but in possession he was really good. Then at 1-1, he ducked. He ducked and we scored a goal to make it 2-1. And then we went on to score in the last minute to make it 3-1. But that second goal was pivotal. Mavropanos ducked out the way. Never been so happy to see Mavropanos make a mistake. But anyway, I feel good this morning because of Scotland. It's the weekend. I hope you have a fantastic one, whatever you're up to. Recording a bit of content with Frankie later, which will go up over the weekend, because I'm going to be taking my 4th day off tomorrow. Tried it last 2 weeks ago. Porter got sacked on my day off, so that got scrapped. So tomorrow I'm having a day off. A little bit of work on Sunday. But anyway, looking forward to it. Hope you have a fantastic one. Thank you very much for sticking with me. If you've somehow enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it. Sky Hammer's chat. Catch up with you in a bit.